Tom Parker stared out the massive window of the Galactic Academy's main hall, watching the 3 moons of Centauri Prime rise over the horizon. Even after 6 months at the most prestigious school in the galaxy, the sight still amazed him. Yet the beauty of the alien world couldn't quite lift his spirits today. Behind him, the sound of heavy footsteps made his shoulders tense. He knew those footsteps well. They belonged to Rex, the top student from the apex species. Rex and his friends never missed a chance to remind Tom that humans didn't belong at the academy. "Look who it is," Rex's deep voice rumbled. The soft skin from that backwater planet. His scales gleamed under the academic hall's lights as he towered over Tom. At 8 feet tall, Rex used his height to intimidate, just like he always did. Tom took a deep breath and turned around slowly. "Good morning, Rex," working on the quantum physics assignment. He kept his voice steady, though his heart raced. Being the only human at the academy meant showing no fear, no matter what. Rex's silver eyes narrowed. "Don't try to act smart, human. Everyone knows your species only got accepted here because of pity quotas." His 2 friends, both fellow Apex students, snickered behind him. The truth was different. Tom had earned his place with the highest entrance exam scores in his year, but Rex and others like him couldn't accept that a human from Earth could match them intellectually. "The test scores speak for themselves," Tom said quietly, gathering his books. He needed to get to advanced xenobiology class. Professor Gray didn't tolerate tardiness, even if being late meant avoiding bullies. Rex's tail whipped through the air, knocking Tom's books to the floor. "Oops," he said with a mock apology. "Guess your weak human reflexes couldn't keep up." Tom bent down to pick up his scattered materials, keeping his face neutral. Getting angry wouldn't help. He'd learned that lesson in his first month here. Instead, he focused on gathering his things while ignoring the laughs above him. Just then, the hall's central display lit up with an announcement that made everyone stop. "Attention all advanced xenobiology students. The annual field study location has been selected. This year's 3-week observation period will take place on Earth." Tom froze with a book halfway to his chest. Earth. His home. The planet he hadn't seen in half a year. A place where... Rex's laughter interrupted his thoughts. Earth? That gravity-heavy rock. This must be a joke. He looked down at Tom with amusement. "Well, at least we'll get to see where humans develop their inferior traits." But Tom wasn't listening anymore. His mind raced with possibilities. On Earth, things would be different. The high gravity that humans had evolved in would be a challenge for species like the Apex, who came from lower gravity worlds. Their superior strength wouldn't mean as much there. "The field study begins in 2 weeks, the announcement continued. "All participating students must complete their environmental adaptation training before departure." Tom stood up slowly, a small smile forming on his face. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he felt a spark of hope. Rex might be stronger here on Centauri Prime, but Earth would level the playing field. "Looking forward to the trip?" Rex asked mockingly, noticing Tom's expression. "Actually, yes," Tom replied, meeting Rex's gaze steadily. "I think it will be educational for everyone." He walked away before Rex could respond, his steps lighter than they'd been in months. In advanced xenobiology, Tom could hardly focus on Professor Gray's lecture about adaptation rates in varying atmospheric conditions. His mind kept drifting to the upcoming field trip. He didn't want revenge. That wasn't his style. But the chance to show his classmates that humans weren't as weak as they thought, that was something worth looking forward to. As he made notes about atmospheric density's effects on different species, Tom couldn't help but wonder how Rex and his friends would handle Earth's conditions. Sometimes the best lessons came from direct experience. And this field trip promised to be quite an experience indeed. The Academy's transport ship, Star Seeker, glided through space, its sleek silver hull reflecting distant starlight. Inside, Tom sat alone in the observation deck, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. After 6 months away, The sight of his home planet's blue and white surface made his chest tight with emotion. Enjoying the view, weak bones. Rex's voice came from behind, but something was different about it. The usual strength seemed slightly strained. Must be nice to finally see your mud ball again. Tom turned to respond, but paused when he noticed Rex was holding onto a support rail. The ship's gravity controls were gradually adjusting to match Earth's pull, preparing the students for their arrival. Even this small change was already affecting the Apex student. "The view is pretty good," Tom replied calmly. "Earth's oceans always look beautiful from space." He stood up without any effort, noting how Rex's eyes narrowed at his easy movement. Two more Apex students entered the observation deck, moving more carefully than usual. They were some of Rex's usual friends, but they seemed less interested in causing trouble today. One of them, Bill, was actually looking a bit pale under his scales. "How do you stand this pressure?" Bill muttered, taking the seat quickly. "We're not even there yet." Tom remembered his orientation at the academy, how it had taken him weeks to adjust to the lighter gravity of Centauri Prime. Now his classmates would experience the opposite challenge. "You'll get used to it," he said, trying to be helpful despite their past behavior. Rex growled, "We don't need your pity, human. This is nothing for an Apex." But his grip on the rail tightened as the ship's gravity increased another small fraction. The observation deck screen lit up with an announcement. "Attention students, we are now at 75% Earth gravity. Please complete your adaptation exercises as instructed in your preparation materials." Tom watched as several other alien students entered the deck, all moving with unusual caution. Species that had evolved on lower gravity worlds were clearly struggling with the adjustment. Even the usually graceful light dancers from Alpha Centauri were walking instead of their usual floating. "Those exercises are important," Tom said, looking at Rex and his friends. "They help your body adjust." "Shut up," Rex snapped, but his voice lacked its usual power. "Just because we're heading to your planet doesn't make you an expert on everything." Tom shrugged and walked to the exit, his movements still easy and natural. "Sure. But remember, this is only 75% of what you'll feel on the surface." He left them with that thought, hearing worried murmurs behind him. In his cabin, Tom reviewed the trip schedule on his tablet. They would reach Earth in 6 hours, landing at the Education Center in the Rocky Mountains. The location had been chosen specifically to challenge the students. Higher altitude, variable weather, and natural terrain would all test their adaptation skills. A message popped up on his screen from Professor Gray. "Mr. Parker, given your Earth experience, would you be willing to assist in helping your classmates adjust once we land?" Tom stared at the message for a long moment. Here was a chance to show everyone what humans could do, not through bullying or revenge, but by helping others, even those who had treated him poorly. "Yes, Professor," he typed back. "I'd be happy to help." As he sent the reply, Tom felt the ship's gravity tick up another notch. Somewhere in the vessel, he could hear the faint sound of someone stumbling. Earth's pull was getting stronger, but Tom smiled. For the first time since joining the academy, he felt truly strong. The blue planet grew larger in his cabin's window, and Tom began preparing for landing. Whatever happened next, this field trip would change everything, not just for him, but for every student who thought they knew what humans were capable of. The Star Seeker landed smoothly at the Earth Education Center, nestled high in the Rocky Mountains. Snow-capped peaks surrounded the modern facility, their jagged tops piercing the morning clouds. Tom stood easily at the ship's exit ramp, watching as his classmates prepared to step onto Earth for the first time. "Remember, everyone," Professor Gray announced, "Earth's gravity will feel stronger than what we've simulated. Take your time adjusting." The professor's extra arms gripped the handrail tightly, showing that even the teachers weren't immune to Earth's pull. Rex pushed his way to the front of the group, trying to maintain his image as the class leader. "It's just a little extra gravity," he said, but his voice wavered slightly. "Nothing an Apex can't handle." Tom watched as Rex took his first step onto Earth. The effect was immediate. Rex's legs buckled slightly, and his usual proud posture slumped. Each step looked like he was wearing heavy weights. Other students followed, all moving as if they were walking through deep water. "The air feels thick," Bill complained, his scales looking duller than usual under Earth's sunlight. "How do you breathe in this soup?" "That's Earth's denser atmosphere," Tom explained, walking normally down the ramp. "It's what helped humans develop our endurance." He carried his bag with ease, while others struggled with their lightweight luggage. Professor Gray gathered them in the facility's main hall, though it took 3 times longer than usual for everyone to assemble. The alien students leaned against walls or sat quickly in chairs, trying to hide their exhaustion from the short walk. "Today's lesson," Professor Gray said, swaying slightly under the gravity, "will focus on how Earth's conditions shaped human evolution. Mr. Parker, would you demonstrate a few basic movements for the class?" Tom stepped forward, feeling every eye on him. He did a series of simple exercises: jumping jacks, push-ups, and a short jog around the room. Actions that would have been unremarkable on any other day drew gasps of surprise from his classmates. "Show off," Rex muttered from his chair, but there was a new note of uncertainty in his voice. He tried to stand up to prove he could do the same, but barely managed to rise before dropping back into his seat. "This is why humans developed such dense muscle structure and robust bones," Professor Gray explained. "Their entire evolution took place under these conditions." Tom caught Rex staring at him with an unreadable expression. The same student who had bullied him for being weak now couldn't even stand properly. But Tom felt no satisfaction in Rex's struggle. He remembered his own difficulties adjusting to Centauri Prime's gravity. "The first few days will be the hardest," Tom told the class, "but your bodies will start adapting. The exercise room has lower gravity settings we can use to help you build up gradually." Several students nodded gratefully, including some who had never spoken to him before. Even Bill gave him a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Tonight's assignment," Professor Gray continued, "is to observe and document how Earth's conditions affect your species. Tomorrow we'll begin our field exercises in the mountain terrain." A collective groan rose from the class. Mountain terrain sounded like torture under this gravity. "Mr. Parker will be assisting with adaptation training," Professor Gray added. "I suggest everyone take advantage of his experience." As the class dispersed to their quarters, moving slowly and carefully, Tom stayed behind to help those who were struggling the most. He caught Rex watching him again, the Apex student's expression now showing something close to respect. "Need a hand?" Tom offered to Rex, who was still trying to stand up. Rex hesitated, his pride warring with necessity. Finally, he nodded. "Maybe, just this once," he admitted quietly. Tom smiled and extended his arm. Sometimes the best victory wasn't in pushing others down, but in helping them up, even if they used to be your bully. The morning sun cast long shadows across the mountain valley as Professor Gray addressed the students gathered outside the education center. After 3 days of adaptation training, it was time for their first real challenge. "Today's survival exercise will test your ability to handle Earth's environment," the professor explained. "You'll be divided into teams of 4. Each team must hike to the designated campsite, set up shelter, and complete a series of tasks." Tom stood with his assigned team: Rex, Bill, and another Apex student named Max. Despite the adaptation training, all 3 still moved carefully under Earth's gravity. Their scales had dulled from the effort of constant exertion. Each team has a map, basic supplies, and emergency communicators. Professor Gray continued, "You have 8 hours to reach the campsite. Mr. Parker, please distribute the supply packs." Tom handed out the backpacks, noting how his teammates struggled with the weight. On Centauri Prime, they could have carried 3 times as much. Here, even the lightweight packs made them grunt with effort. "I should lead," Rex said as they started walking, his breath already heavy. "I have the most outdoor experience." He stumbled on a loose rock, and Tom caught his arm before he could fall. "Maybe we should work together," Tom suggested. "I know Earth's terrain, and you know survival basics. We can combine our knowledge." Rex looked like he wanted to argue, but another step on the uneven ground made him reconsider. "Fine," he said. "What do you suggest?" Tom pointed to a path that wound around the mountain rather than going straight up. "This route is longer but easier to walk. We'll save energy, and there's a stream we can follow." The team followed Tom's lead, moving slower than he could have gone alone but faster than if they'd taken the direct route. He showed them how to test their footing on loose rocks and use trees for support when needed. "The air's so thick here," Max complained after an hour of hiking. "How do you humans handle it?" "The thick air actually helps us," Tom explained, pausing to let them rest. "More oxygen means better endurance. Try taking deeper, slower breaths instead of shallow ones." To everyone's surprise, the breathing technique helped. The team made steady progress, while they could hear other groups struggling on different paths. Tom's knowledge of Earth's environment proved valuable at every turn. When they reached a steep section, Tom taught them how to distribute their weight properly for climbing. "The gravity makes you want to hunch forward," he said, demonstrating the correct posture. "But that just wastes energy. Stay upright and let your bones support you." Bill tried the technique first. It works. Still heavy, but manageable. They reached the stream Tom had mentioned, and he showed them how to test the water's safety and refill their containers. The cool water revived their spirits, and even Rex nodded appreciatively at Tom's guidance. "Look," Tom pointed to some marks in the mud. "Earth deer passed through here recently. We're not the only ones who use this path." "You can read Earth animal signs?" Rex asked, genuine interest in his voice. "My parents taught me," Tom replied. "Earth survival skills are passed down through generations. We had to be clever to survive here." As the afternoon wore on, the team fell into a rhythm. Rex's pride had given way to practical cooperation, and the others followed his example. They shared what they knew about survival techniques, combining their knowledge with Tom's Earth expertise. Near the end of their hike, they heard calls for help. Another team had taken a harder route and was stuck on a tricky slope, their bodies too weakened by gravity to climb up or down safely. "We should help them," Tom said, already moving in their direction. Rex surprised everyone by being the first to follow. "You helped us," he said simply. "Now we help them." Tom smiled. Maybe this was what the professors had hoped for all along. Not just teaching about Earth's environment, but showing how survival often depended on working together, regardless of species or past conflicts. Dark clouds rolled over the mountains without warning, turning the afternoon sky an ominous gray. Tom looked up from helping the rescued team and recognized the signs immediately. A mountain thunderstorm was coming, and it would be dangerous. "Everyone needs to pack up now," he said, his voice firm with urgency. "Earth storms at this altitude are serious. We need to find better shelter." Rex, who had been resting after helping the other team, raised his head. "It's just rain," he said, but without his usual mockery. "Surely we can wait it out." A distant rumble of thunder made several students jump. The wind picked up, bringing a sharp drop in temperature that made the alien students' scales and skin tighten uncomfortably. "Earth storms can kill," Tom explained quickly, already gathering supplies. "Lightning, flash floods, hypothermia. We're not safe in the open." He pointed to a rocky outcropping about half a mile away. "There's a cave system there. It's our best option." Professor Gray's voice crackled over their emergency communicators. "Attention all teams. Dangerous weather system approaching. Seek immediate shelter. Local terrain unsafe." Static cut off the rest of the message. "The storm's interfering with communications," Tom said, shouldering his pack and grabbing extra supplies. "We need to move. Now." The first drops of rain felt like ice, and the alien students quickly realized this wasn't like the gentle rains of their homeworlds. Earth's heavier gravity pulled the raindrops down with stinging force, and the wind whipped them sideways. "I can barely see," Bill shouted over the wind, his feet slipping on the quickly muddying ground. Tom looked at the group. There were now 8 students total, combining his team with the ones they'd rescued. All of them were struggling with the gravity and weather. "Link arms," he called out. "Don't get separated." Rex grabbed Tom's shoulder with one hand and Bill's with the other, forming the first link. The others quickly joined, creating a chain of students fighting their way through the storm. Lightning flashed overhead, followed immediately by deafening thunder. Several students cried out in fear, never having experienced anything like it. The rain became a downpour, and small streams began forming on the ground, rushing downhill with dangerous speed. "The water's rising fast," Tom shouted, guiding the group higher. "Earth's gravity makes flash floods extremely dangerous. Stay on high ground." They were moving slower than Tom would have liked, but he refused to leave anyone behind. When Max slipped on wet rocks, Tom and Rex worked together to pull him up. When one of the rescued students became too exhausted to walk, they took turns supporting her. Finally, the cave entrance came into view. Tom quickly checked it for wildlife or hazards, then guided everyone inside. The cave was deep enough to shelter them all, and, more importantly, stayed above the rising water level outside. "Is everyone okay?" Tom asked, doing the head count as the students collapsed onto the dry cave floor, exhausted from fighting gravity and weather together. "We're alive," Rex said, looking at Tom with new eyes. "Because you knew what to do." The other students nodded in agreement, their earlier prejudices forgotten in the face of survival. Tom dug through his pack and pulled out emergency supplies. "Here's what we need to do next," he said, laying out heat-reflecting blankets. "The storm might last hours. We need to stay warm and conserve energy." As he showed them how to handle the emergency supplies, Tom noticed how naturally they all followed his instructions now. There was no more mockery, no skepticism about human capabilities. Earth itself had taught them the most important lesson. Survival wasn't about being the strongest, but about understanding your environment and working together. The storm raged outside, but inside the cave, something new was forming. Respect, understanding, and maybe even friendship, forged in the face of Earth's challenges. The morning after the storm dawned clear and bright. Rescue teams from the Earth Education Center found Tom and the other students safe in their cave, and everyone returned to the facility for medical checks and rest. But something had changed in the way the alien students looked at their human classmate. "I don't understand," Rex said, sitting with Tom in the facility's dining hall the next day. His usual group of friends sat with them, their trays loaded with recovery meals. "Your species doesn't have natural armor, enhanced strength, or any special abilities. But on Earth, we're perfectly adapted," Tom finished, taking a bite of his breakfast. "Just like you're perfectly adapted for your world. That's what I've been trying to tell everyone." Bill leaned forward, his scales now bright again after proper rest. "But you knew everything. The weather, the terrain, how to survive. Even our teachers were surprised by the storm's intensity." "Humans had to learn," Tom explained. "We didn't have natural advantages, so we developed knowledge and passed it down. We studied our environment, learned its patterns, and figured out how to survive its challenges." Professor Gray approached their table, looking pleased to see the students sitting together. "I see you're all discussing yesterday's experience. Perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts with the whole class." The professor led them to the main lecture hall, where other students were already gathered. Many still moved carefully under Earth's gravity, but there was a new respect in their eyes when Tom entered. Yesterday's events, Professor Gray began, though unplanned, provided an excellent learning opportunity. Would anyone like to share their observations? Rex surprised everyone by standing first, though the effort clearly cost him under Earth's pull. "I was wrong about humans," he said clearly. "I thought their lack of natural defenses made them weak. But Earth showed us why they evolved differently." Tom watched as other students nodded in agreement. The same classmates who had once laughed at his primitive species were now paying close attention. Their strength isn't in claws or scales, Rex continued. It's in their ability to understand their environment and adapt. Without Tom's knowledge, we would have been in real danger during the storm. An excellent observation, Professor Gray said. Can anyone else share what they learned? Max raised his hand. Earth's gravity makes everything harder for us, but humans evolved with it. They built their civilization under conditions that would crush most species. That's actually impressive. And they help others, Bill added. Tom could have left us struggling. Instead, he taught us how to handle Earth's challenges. Tom felt his face grow warm at the praise, but he stood up to speak. Every species has their strengths, he said. On Centauri Prime, I'm the one who needs help adjusting. The point isn't who's stronger. It's understanding and respecting our differences. Professor Gray nodded approvingly. This is exactly what we hoped you would learn from this field trip. The galaxy is vast, with countless environments and adaptations. No species is superior. We all have our own unique strengths and challenges. After class, Rex pulled Tom aside. The massive Apex student looked uncomfortable, but determined. I need to apologize, he said, not just for yesterday, but for everything since you arrived at the academy. I was arrogant, and I was wrong. Tom looked at his former bully, seeing the genuine regret in his silver eyes. Apology accepted, he said simply. Sometimes we need to walk in someone else's gravity to understand their perspective. Rex laughed, then groaned as the movement taxed his gravity-strained muscles. Was that a human joke? Maybe you can teach me those too. Around them, other students were mingling, asking Tom questions about Earth and sharing stories about their own worlds. The barriers that had separated them were breaking down, replaced by curiosity and mutual respect. As Tom looked at his classmates, no longer aliens and bullies, but friends learning from each other, he realized that sometimes the greatest strength wasn't in proving others wrong, but in helping them understand. The Star Seeker broke through Centauri Prime's atmosphere, carrying the students back to the Galactic Academy. 3 weeks on Earth had changed them all in ways none had expected. Tom stood at the same observation deck window where his journey had begun, but this time he wasn't alone. I can feel my strength returning already, Rex said, standing beside him. The Apex student was stretching his limbs, enjoying the familiar lighter gravity. Though I have to admit, I'm going to miss some things about Earth. The sunsets, Tom asked with a smile, remembering how amazed everyone had been by Earth's colorful skies. Those too, but I meant the lessons we learned there. Rex turned to face his former victim. Now, friend, you taught us more than just survival skills. The ship's common area was filled with students sharing stories about their Earth experiences. Bill was showing others the Earth rock collection he'd gathered, while Max was trying to teach some younger students the breathing techniques Tom had shown them. Professor Gray's voice came over the ship's announcement system. Attention students, please prepare for docking. And remember, your final reports on the Earth field study are due next week. Tom gathered his things, noticing how much easier everything felt in the lighter gravity of their return journey. As they walked to the docking area, he saw other students from different classes watching them with curiosity. The sight of an Apex student walking and talking casually with a human was still unusual. Did you hear? Rex asked as they waited for docking. The Academy Board made a decision yesterday. They're going to increase the number of human students next year. Tom stopped in surprise. Really? What made them change their mind? Our reports from Earth. Every student who went on the trip supported it. They finally understood that different species bring different strengths to the Academy. The ship docked smoothly at the Academy's spaceport. As students began to exit, Tom noticed something else different. Other aliens were greeting them with interest rather than the usual dismissal humans received. A group of first-year students stopped them in the hallway. Is it true? One asked eagerly. Did you really survive an Earth storm? And the gravity? Before Tom could answer, Rex stepped forward. "Everything you've heard is true," he said proudly. "And let me tell you something. Anyone who thinks humans are weak has never tried to walk in their gravity." The story of their Earth adventure had spread through the academy while they were gone. Tom saw messages on the school's information boards about new classes being added, Earth environmental studies, and cross-species adaptation techniques. In the main hall, Professor Gray called Tom and Rex aside. "The Academy Board was impressed by how you both handled the challenges on Earth," the professor said. "They asked you to help develop the orientation program for next year's human students." "Both of us?" Tom asked, surprised. Rex nodded. "Makes sense. You know what it's like to be the only human here, and I know what it's like to learn respect for different species. Together, we can help others avoid our mistakes." As they walked to their next class, Tom realized how much had changed. The halls that once felt hostile now felt welcoming. Students who used to ignore him now stopped to say hello or ask questions about Earth. "You know what's funny?" Rex said as they reached their classroom. "I used to think being strong meant being able to push others around. Earth taught me that real strength is being able to admit when you're wrong and learn from others." Tom smiled at his friend. "That's probably the most important lesson from our field trip. That and never underestimate a species just because they look different," Rex added with a laugh. "Especially if they evolved on a heavy gravity planet with crazy storms." As they took their seats, Tom looked around at his classmates. No longer divided by species or prejudices, but united by their shared experiences and understanding. The Earth field trip hadn't just changed how others saw humans. It had changed how everyone saw each other. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest adventures weren't about proving your strength, but about finding your place in the vast galaxy they all shared.